to you, you. Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share it with a friend or two? Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you. And many more. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that you have been having a great and wonderful day. It is Daring Dialogues Black Table Talk. And before we get into our reading, let me just say this. Namaste. Good morning. I hope everybody is well. Let me just reiterate something because I see a lot of people, a lot of new people are finding my page. The page says Black Table Talk, but there are a lot of non Black people who are finding my page. For the Black community, what is understood does not need to be explained. But I'm really trying to put into very, very plain terms for some of you who are not Black, who are on my page, and that is okay. If you're here to learn, you're here to listen, that is fine. Okay? I have a policy right now where if I find a video and I can't find it on Facebook, if I find it on another platform, I will embed that video into the comments and I will ask you to watch that video. The reason I do this is because sometimes, because of Facebook's animosity towards other platforms, they will sometimes ding videos that come from other platforms. They will say we violated community guidelines, and that puts a target on our page, an unnecessary target, but a target nonetheless. If the topic is controversial and I want to share the information, I will embed the video in the comments. So again, that we don't get dings for unnecessary stuff. Okay? So if you're coming into my page and you see a post that says video in comments, no, I'm not going to give you another link to it. Watch the video, share the post. If it was helpful, watch the video, share the post. Watch the video, share the post. My post description literally says video in comments. Okay? Now, in case you didn't realize, we are now entering into a season, yet another season, because we went through this in 2016. We're yet entering into another season of hostile territory. Okay? So some of us has already recognized and realized that some of us have already recognized and realized that we're now in hostile territory, meaning um, that we are employing what we call digital underground tactics. Okay. Now, you might not be experiencing that yet, but our pages are definitely experiencing that already. Okay. Um, you said it's not opening up. You have to be more specific. What's not opening up? The videos in the comments? Because if the video in the comments not opening up, then we'll check. We'll look into that. Okay. But I played one today and it was going fine. So it might be a connection thing. I haven't had anybody come back and say they can't watch the video. I think you're the first person that I got that message from. Now, sometimes the authors of these videos, somebody will tag them in and they'll come to the page and they'll engage in conversation with you. And then you can just go to their page because it might be up on their page. But I do know that people are not sharing the videos they post sometimes on TikTok. They're not sharing them on Facebook because, again, there are certain things that when we share them on Facebook, Facebook says they're a violation of community guidelines, even if they are truthful things and things that need to be shared. Like, we just need to be aware that you're on a platform that excuses right wing activity. And when people have reported it, they don't think that right wing activity violates community guidelines. Therefore, if you are posting something that is against right wing stuff or bringing attention to it, Facebook gives you a community guideline violation. Okay? I'm just trying to help us understand. I want everybody that comes to my page to understand what it is that we're doing, but we don't want to have to spell out everything. Okay? Literally, think right now, digital underground railroad. Just assume that that's what's happening with a lot of content creators that you follow that are content creators of color. We are still trying to communicate, we're still trying to get things out in a way that doesn't get our pages shut down. Now, if y'all can help us with that and not come into the comments saying, where's the link? I'm not giving you a link. The video is embedded in the comment section. Got it? All right. We're going to move on. So today we are back reading a pivotal work by Bell Hooks called Rock My Soul, Black People and Self-Esteem. Right now in this hour, we have lots of people recognizing the need for us to focus in on our community. The need for us to build within our community. Some of us have been doing this, but I think it's become more evident to others that they need to join in on what we've been doing, which is building amongst ourselves. So let's talk a little bit more about what she has to say here with Living with Integrity. That is the chapter we're on. Living with Integrity, chapter 4. And this is what she says. Those of us who have decolonized our minds were attempting to follow the revolutionary, constructive, oppositional values of our ancestors, yet still develop the skills needed to succeed in the existing social order. It's almost like she is still with us in 2024, understanding what we face. I'm going to read that again. Those of us who decolonized our minds were attempting to follow the revolutionary, constructive, oppositional values of our ancestors, yet still develop the skills needed to succeed in the existing social order. There is an existing social order that we are all trying to navigate as best we know how. So keep that in mind. And a great many of us were trying to play the game to appear to be assimilating while maintaining different values away from work or any social interaction with envelopian people. Then there were the conservative thinkers among us who believed deeply that the best strategy for success was to embrace liberal individualism, to eschew signs of Black culture, and act as much like one's white counterparts as possible. All of these choices create new psychological stress, and yet their presence in our lives did not lead to the cultivation of mental care aimed at addressing the issues. A primary issue that was never addressed was the shaming and other forms of emotional abuse many of us experience in higher education as we endeavored to relate to and please authority figures of all races, but mostly white, who had not divested themselves of racist thinking and practice. These encounters assaulted our self esteem. Those of us who were coming from segregated black worlds into a culture dominated by white people, the vast majority of whom had not divested themselves of white supremacist thinking, often drove ourselves crazy trying to balance the two worlds. In one world, we had been taught that the good of the group was paramount. In the other world, we were being taught the primacy of individual will and the individual drive to succeed was paramount. And I think one of the posts that we put up that talked about this idea of vertical morality versus horizontal morality kind of dives into this. A crisis of values led many black folks coming out of these experiences to behave in ways that created intense inner turmoil and conflict. Writing about the practice of personal integrity, Brandon states, when we behave in ways that conflict with our judgment of what is appropriate, we lose faith in our own eyes. We respect ourselves less. If the policy becomes habitual, we trust ourselves less or cease to trust ourselves at all. Significantly, Brandon writes that the practice of personal integrity usually requires us to ask the questions: am I honest? Am I reliable? Am I trustworthy? Do I keep my promises? Do I do the things I say I admire? And do I avoid the things I say I deplore? Am I fair and just in my dealings with others? Inner turmoils over the issues of personal integrity has intensified among black people of all classes as the ethics of greed have become a norm in our society. Yeah. Uh, she wrote this in 2003. Here we are in 2024, and these words still ring true. To a grave extent, many of the black folks who have retreated into an idealized utopian vision of blackness have done so to avoid having to cope with conflicting values and standards. All over our nation, the rise in fundamentalist thinking corresponds with a feeling that many people have that they no longer know how to judge right and wrong. Those feelings are often intensified in the lives of people of color and black people particularly. For example, consider the poor single mother who is raising her children in a housing project, barely able to make ends meet. She has taught her children ethical values. She is anti violence, anti drugs. She has a teenage son who begins to bring money into the home from selling drugs. She knows his actions are ethically and morally wrong, but she is conflicted about the appropriate way to respond. Another example coming from my experience. Imagine an extremely bright young black girl raised in the dorms of a prestigious college by a hardworking college educated single mom. She is in charge of dorm life, has taught her child ethical and moral values. As she grows up, the girl hangs out with mostly white friends who are also gifted and bright, but who come from very privileged backgrounds. Even though the girl has had most of her material needs met, she wants to be an equal with her peers. She begins to steal to gain material advantage. She knows her actions are wrong, yet she also holds the competing belief that anything goes if it gets you what you want. Motivated by deep seated resentments, her acting out exposes the crippling low self esteem that emerged when she began to understand the differences separating her life circumstances and those of her peers. Sadly, her actions create stress for both her mother and herself, and the mental health of both suffers. For far too long, African Americans have held to the belief that we might have shady dealings in the world, but when we return to the segregated worlds of blackness, our integrity can still be intact. This is simply not the case. The world of blackness has become just as corrupt as the world of whiteness. The impact of lying and betrayal in black on black social relations is dire. In fact, many folks who first idealized whiteness only to find that fantasy disrupted turn to blackness looking for an alternative and are even more shattered when they find that there are the same evils they had to contend with in the other world. Um, Thank you for letting me know you couldn't get through. I'm hoping that Facebook is not doing something else wild again. I don't see anybody on the live, so I'm hoping that the live is still live. Then I'm gonna make you a moderator as well while you're over here, so that let's see, so that you can remove any messages, you can hide messages, and you can put users in timeout if we need to do that. All right. So what Bell Hooks is contending here is that when you start moving your integrity in a way, or you start shirking your own moral system so that you can get material advantage or material gain, you become a lot of times like the things you say that you are fighting against. And like she said in her day, people realize, well, the same evils that are going on here are also going on and happening in the black community, because you're moving away from your community centered values into, like she said, this dog eat dog world, greed, materialism is first. I got to get the stuff. And we know in our community now, I mean, that's a whole saying, getting to the bag, not getting to the grace, not getting to the empathy, right? Not getting to the kindness, not getting to the compassion, not getting to the community activism, but getting to the bag, getting to the bag. All right. So she's saying ultimately we have a choice. We have a responsibility to decide the kind of value system that we want to operate and live our lives by. Let's keep reading. Certainly, any examination of the estrangement between the black women and men in intimate relationships reveals the role lying and deceit plays in undermining trust. Without trust, there can be no love. Lying damages self esteem. While the black male player, a man who womanizes, is often depicted positively in film and literature, his whole life revolves around the betrayal of himself and others. The same is true of his female counterpart. Even though sexism in African American life makes her actions more reprehensible than those of her male counterpart, the truth is that both individuals deprive themselves of personal integrity essential for well being when it comes to relationships. Emotional pain can be covered up when one is running from one liaison to another. As children witnessing our father's lies about womanizing, we learn to recognize adult hypocrisy. Brandon reminds us in Six Pillars of Self Esteem that, quote, hypocrisy by its very nature is self invalidating. It is mind rejecting in itself. A default on integrity undermines me and contaminates my sense of self. Our society has made it seem that to lie and cheat is acceptable behavior. Hmm. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. There we go. Thank you for tuning in. Let's hope we can focus on the reading. So, our society has made it seem that to lie and cheat is acceptable behavior. I was watching a video, um, I think the day after the election on last week, and it was a video of a young male student, and he was on his way to school, and his mother had decided to tape him, and he was talking to us as adults. And when he was talking, it kind of broke my heart a little bit because he said, "You all tell us not to lie. You all tell us not to cheat. You all tell us not to steal. But then we watch you go pick somebody who's done those things. What are we supposed to think about you as the adults and as our parents?" It was a good question because in the eyes of the children who are coming behind us, it seems very hypocritical to teach them one thing and then choose someone who does exactly what you're teaching them not to do. And you want to say, well, they shouldn't be telling us as adults how to act. They need to stay in a quote unquote child's place. But when the child is right, do you chastise the child because the child is telling the truth? No. You have to sit with what children are coming to learn from you in your actions and your behaviors, our behavior as a society. Studies show that Americans lie when it would be simpler to tell the truth. The most devastating indictment of this cultural trend is the way more and more children lie constantly to cope with any situation when they are called upon to act with moral discernment. When children risk severe punishment by truth telling, then lying becomes the strategy to avoid pain. Many black children, fearing adult wrath, will lie. Then they struggle to cope with moral self approach. Seeing adults they know most intimately lie and deceive merely reinforces the notion that there is no value in being a person of integrity. That is what is being enforced and reinforced. That there's no value in being a person of integrity. There's no value in being a person with good moral character. There's no value, you're reinforcing, there's no value in being honest. That is what's happening in this moment. So when people talk about the fabric of a society and the tearing down of the fabric of a society, part of the way you tear down the moral fabric of a society is to put immoral people in front of us and say you must follow immoral people. That's a tearing down and a tearing of the fabric of your society. That if you want to be a person of integrity, you don't have a place in the coming governing of society. If you want to be a person of moral standard, you don't have a place. And I found it very interesting because obviously the day after the election, I still had to go and teach. And a lot of my students are not students who live in the United States. And one of the things they said to me was, don't don't they realize the power of black women? I said, I guess not. And then one of them said, well, I was thinking about coming to the United States to go to school, but I don't know anymore because the way that you all feel about women is concerning. So yes, elections have consequences. Elections are shaping These particular elections are shaping the future of whether or not young people will even want to come to this country to be connected and involved with the United States. Think about that. Got one more paragraph to read here. And Ben, hopefully I'll be able to bring you on to converse on, I guess we'll try to do it on YouTube today. All right. Many children create a false self early in life. In the case of black children, the idea of a false self has become a norm in many families wherein folk believe that survival depends on wearing a mask, never letting anyone know how you feel or who you really are. By the time these children reach adulthood, they may have no sense of who they really are. Wearing a mask requires that one learn to disassociate. Trying on different ideas, using dissimulation to con others, is one of the ways individuals choose a course of behavior that can lead to mental illness. The imposter syndrome has become more pronounced among African Americans, though the study started with white women. Individuals lie daily about where they have attended school, the degrees they have, to create a persona that works in whatever setting they may find themselves. One of my brilliant students shared with me that she was dining with a group of white folks, and another black person present engaged her in a rigorous discussion about the nature of anthropological research. When he questioned her about the information she put forth, she blithely told him she was an anthropologist. Her intense desire to best him in the argument made her feel that it was fine to tell a lie. She was satisfied because she had won and wanted to minimize her lie, yet continual acts of lying like this could easily become the behavior norm, undermining her integrity. Our news media eagerly brings us stories about individual black people who are imposters, such as the black female journalist who wrote a series of articles about a black boy who did not exist. When it was discovered that she had created a false story, colleagues checked out her background and found that she had lied about her educational training. Yet no articles about her case looked at the issue of self esteem. Years ago, I recommended a black woman student who was about to complete a master's degree for a teaching job. When she came to the college for her interview, she told them she had completed her work. This information was shared with me by the members of the all white hiring committee. However, I knew she had not written her thesis. They offered her the job. Hearing this, I felt a moral dilemma. I did not want to expose her as a liar to the committee, but I did not want to be included in a scam either. I spoke with the dean and told him that I was excited that they wanted her and felt it was in the best interest of her progress and our students to insist that her thesis be completed. I felt strongly that if she were hired, with everyone knowing about her dishonesty, it would set a bad example for students. I was particularly concerned that students would get the false impression that it was not important to finish degrees, that even with incomplete work, they would be hired. The white folks in power did not listen to me. They wanted to engage in affirmative action hiring, and they liked this individual. I liked her too, but I refused to do her the disservice of setting a different standard, one that diminished her in the long run. Oftentimes, I confront the reality that, as in slavery days, many white folks do not expect ethical behavior from black people. They look at black folks using a substandard measurement. By doing this, they, like their racist predecessors, invite us to be unethical and to see this behavior as the only way to succeed. If white employers are looking to hire black folks who are dishonest, then there will be plenty of black folks who will act in a dishonest manner to qualify. And they will tell themselves that their behavior is acceptable and not morally reprehensible. They will deny to themselves and to others the damage done to their sense of self or self esteem. Without honesty, we cannot be people of integrity. Our integrity is usually challenged not by dramatic moral decisions, but by the small decisions we make daily about right and wrong, issues that require of us moral reflection. Too many folks believe that hypocrisy and dishonesty have no consequence. They may even see constant lying as a sign that they know how to play the game of success. Since the culture validates lying, there is rarely any outside force that challenges their behavior. Oftentimes, well meaning white folks refuse to challenge black peers for fear of being labeled racist. Sadly, by employing a different standard of judgment for black coworkers or friends, one that excuses their behavior, these folks unwittingly enact the racism that they aim to deplore. There are many circumstances where individual black people act in an unethical manner and then attempt to abdicate responsibility for their actions by evoking racism. Even if racism is a factor in forming our life circumstances, this does not exempt us from the practice of personal integrity. In the midst of the total autocracy of slavery, black folks struggled to maintain an integrity of thought and being. Contemporary black people who dishonor our ancestral legacy of strong commitment to ethical behavior We do this when we act as though being victimized frees us from the task of learning and practicing personal integrity. We must not deny the importance of personal integrity, even when unintegrous things are happening to us. All right. If you have been listening on Black Table Talk, our Facebook page, I want to thank you for your time and attention. We are going to try to continue this conversation on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and type into the chat here the YouTube link. Do that. And if you want to join us there for the talkback, you can join us there now. Thank you for listening to the reading of Rock My Soul by Bell Hooks. All right, so let's see if I can do this. No, I don't want to start a poll. So it's not going to allow me to add you on for some reason. All right. So we are going to have to take our talk back to Instagram. Um, and I'm going to have to add that here really quickly. So we'll move it to Instagram. Let me go let my Facebook audience know. We're going to go over to Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at Daring Dialogues. And so you can go to Instagram and find us there in just a minute. And you can join us for the talk back. All right. Jesse, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. And thank you for those of you who tuned into this part of our segment. Again, if you want to hear our talk back or you want to offer your thoughts on what we read today, feel free to join us in just a moment at Daring Dialogues is the handle on Instagram. See you then.